Matt Whitaker, former U.S. Acting Attorney General.
This is such a great conversation about America, our future, what's going to save our republic.
We have a great football player. Matt Whitaker is here. Matt.
They tried to bury me. They didn't realize I was a C.
It's a touchdown, Whitaker.
Former acting U.S. Attorney General.
Under President Trump.
I'm going to be an unwavering supporter of law enforcement.
Welcome to Liberty and Justice with your host, Matt Whitaker.
Welcome back, Matt Whitaker. I'm here with Senator Ted Cruz. Senator, good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you.
CPAC, isn't this the best time every year?
It is awesome.
People are in Texas.
People are energized. They're excited. I'm thrilled that it's in Texas. I mean, Texas, you compare it to D.C. and Texas is the land of the free.
Yeah, it really is. So you were here earlier doing a book signing.
Yep.
And I want to tell me about your new book. And it's about the Supreme Court. I know that, called One Vote.
One Vote Away.
One Vote Away.
How a single Supreme Court seat can change history. And it was a #1 bestseller on Amazon. And I've actually got a brand new book coming out next month. Called Justice Corrupted, How the Left Has Weaponized the Legal System. And both of them are right up your alley. And so the new book that's coming out, which you can pre-order on Amazon,
yes.
Justice
I'll make sure I link it on the show.
The new book, you will find a particular interest because it traces the politicization and the weaponization of the Department of Justice and the FBI, and what Richard Nixon tried to do, to use the machinery of government to go after his political enemies, and by and large, the government resisted Nixon's efforts. Barack Obama succeeded in doing, and weaponized the Department of Justice, the FBI, the IRS, and then, as you know well, during the Trump administration, many of those hard partisans burrowed into the deep state and used the machinery of government to wage war on Donald Trump at a level never before seen. And now, under Joe Biden, we are seeing, I think, the most politicized and partisan Department of Justice and FBI we've ever seen.
Yeah, and I know you just had Director Wray in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and it seemed like he would never answer and doesn't even recognize the two-tiered system of justice that all of us see. The fact that you can have riots, an attack on the White House that put the president in the bunker, no one prosecuted, churches burned, but you have a similar riot, similar city, and those people are prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
Yeah, and I'm deeply frustrated. Look, you worked with Chris Wray when you were acting Attorney General. I've known Chris 20 plus years.
Yes.
I have been deeply disappointed with the job he's doing, and here's why. I don't think Chris is himself politicized.
Yes.
I think he's a company man, and I think he's been unwilling to take on the partisanship and politicization in his senior leadership at the FBI, and I think it gets exacerbated that he views his job as protect the institution, which I've made the case to him offline. I've said, you want to protect the institution, root out the partisanship, return the FBI to being an apolitical law enforcement agency. That's the single biggest thing he could do for the FBI, but for whatever reason, he hadn't been willing to do so.
Yeah, and I watched with great interest when you showed the intelligence bulletin holding something, and I think your speech today mentioned it. You talked about the symbols really of the conservative right, and now they somehow they link that. They say, well, if you use the Gadsden flag or Rodriguez flag, which is on the back of your boots, and you set it up on the dais, or even the Betsy Ross flag, that somehow you are a militia member and you need to be investigated.
It is. Look, these are the biases and prejudices of the hard left. And they're used to justify targeting conservatives. They're used to justify targeting their political enemies. And amazingly enough, the FBI won't focus and go after Antifa, won't designate Antifa as a terrorist organization, won't focus and go after Black Lives Matter, which is an explicitly Marxist organization founded by avowed Marxists. You look at the Black Lives Matter and Antifa riots, they produced over $2 billion of damage across this country, that they injured thousands of police officers, and yet the Department of Justice treats, and the FBI treat it as if it's just a walk in the park.
Yeah.
It is
similar and akin to Chicago gang violence.
Well, and look, let's you and I talk about, so the second part of my questioning of Chris Wray. So, as you well know, the Department of Justice announced to great fanfare a prosecution against what they said was a plot to kidnap and murder the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer. And look, when that news broke, people were like, holy crap, that's really bad. And if these guys did this, they should be locked up a long time. So initially you saw the news. Well, as you know, those cases went to trial. 4 defendants. Not a single defendant was convicted on even a single count. 2 of them were acquitted across the board. The other 2 got mistrials. The principal defense was entrapment, that the FBI actively entrapped and enticed them, and there was testimony at trial that the guys involved in it wanted out. They said, I don't want to do this, it's a bad idea, let's not go through with it. And the FBI's paid informant were like, no, we must kidnap her, we must murder her, and planted the idea, pushed the idea, drove the idea that it was the FBI driving that effort. Now look, you've been a U.S. attorney, you've been acting attorney general of the United States. Let me ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how big a screw-up is it to have no defendant convicted on even a single account, and the reason for it explicitly being the misconduct of the FBI?
Well, it's incomprehensible. And in my experience, you don't bring a case unless you have a reasonable likelihood, or a standard maybe even higher, that you will win at trial.
Yep.
You don't bring cases, and this is why the Department of Justice, whether it's a plea agreement or whether it's a trial, 99.9% of the cases,
they win almost everything.
Yeah, win almost everything. And so to lose at trial is a big deal. To lose all counts against all defendants is and then to have it based on an entrapment defense, I mean, is extraordinary.
And even worse than that. So I asked Chris Wray yesterday, I said, okay, of the FBI agents who did this, how many have been reprimanded or disciplined? He would refuse to answer. None of your business. I'm not going to talk about that.
And that's my experience too. Even when I was in the 5th floor at the Department of Justice, you ask the FBI about any personnel matter, and they are very circle the wagons. And Chris would always remind me, and I've known Chris not as long as you have, but almost as long as he was the head of the criminal division in the Bush administration. And Chris at the FBI left me with the impression of, Matt, I'm the only political appointee here. There's 40,000 approximately employees at the FBI, and I have to have their confidence. If I lose their confidence, I can't do anything. And so we have to follow the processes and procedures. We have to honor all the systems. But sometimes these institutions build these systems to protect themselves instead of having the transparency the American people deserve.
And he hasn't been willing to take on the politicization and root it out.
Yeah.
And the last set of questions I asked him, I said, okay, so the special agent in charge of the Detroit office, the field office that led this entire investigation, the prosecution, the bungled prosecution, what happened to him? And the answer is he got promoted. He got sent to D.C., and he's now the lead FBI person on the January 6th investigations and prosecutions.
Right.
Like, holy crap. and by the way, Chris's defense, well, he was just in charge of the office. It wasn't his fault.
It's a big office. I know I was watching it
Whatever
very
happened to the buck stops here? Like, if you're in charge of an office that does that, in corporate America, at a law firm, look, you've been at a private law firm. If you're in charge of a law firm practice that screws up that badly, you're probably out of a job. At this FBI, if your politics line up with the politics of the other deep staters, you get promoted. And I got to say, how is a criminal defendant wrapped up in January 6th supposed to feel remotely like they're getting a fair shake at justice when you have someone who's already been in charge of a deeply messed up prosecution and an entrapment?
No, you're absolutely right. And we're not even going to have time to touch on Senator Grassley and Senator Johnson's concerns. And I knew this for a fact that this was happening. Media that's closely aligned with these folks calls them up and says, how about this Hunter Biden story? Is there anything to it? And they're like, no, nothing to see there. Disinformation, the intelligence community comes out, of course, and says, and that's extraordinary when they can when they can throw people off the set.
Matt, you've been a prosecutor a long time. So Hunter Biden has online, you can see him, videos of him with naked prostitutes with crack cocaine waving around a gun.
Yep.
Now, if you or I did that, what would happen?
you would be prosecuted as a drug user in possession of a firearm.
Like, on the face of
Yeah.
it, he's committing multiple felonies, but because Daddy's at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, apparently this Department of Justice, it is a double standard and it's wrong.
Yeah. Well, Senator Cruz, thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for welcoming us to Texas. What a great state. We'll do this again soon.
Thank you, my friend.
All right, my friend.